we're back. We're back. It is Weather for Weather Geeks time on this Monday evening, the 14th day of July. I was on vacation last week, so of course we didn't do Weather Geeks at all last week, and my posts on social media were definitely more limited than usual. I had a good time with my side of the family. We went to Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina, which, if you're unfamiliar with that region, that's kind of north of Myrtle Beach, and we happened to go down right as a tropical storm was kind of buzzing past the area. Now, this was, in the grand scheme of things, not the strongest tropical storm in the world, but it was enough to cause a rip current threat, and the winds were howling at times during the first 24 hours we were there, and the surf was pretty rough. We got down there on Saturday the 5th and Sunday the 6th. I took this picture of the surf at Ocean Isle Beach, and yeah, those waves were pretty high. My two nephews out here were braver than I was. They were out there amongst some of those high waves. We were supervising them, of course, because it was a little bit dangerous to be, too far out there with the sea as angry as it was down in coastal North Carolina. Well, back here at home, we're at July 14th now, so we're almost to the halfway point of July and of summer. We'll have a more comprehensive kind of halftime report of meteorological summer coming up on Weather Geeks on Tuesday, but one thing that's really stood out this summer, the overnight lows. We've had one cooler than average night so far in July, and that was on July 4th. Every other night has either been at average or several degrees warmer than the average, and of course June was much like this. The overnight lows are kind of doing the heavy lifting, if you will. Now, the daytime temperatures have been warmer than the average this summer, but the overnight lows have been warmer than the average by a bigger margin for July. 4.5 degrees above the average. We've had so many nights like this one. These were this morning's lows. 69 at the Youngstown Warren Airport, but the low was 70 in New Philly and Akron, 72 in Pittsburgh. We've had so many nights where the temperature just barely drops below 70, if it does at all. We got more nights like that coming up in the near term. That being said, it was a very wet May and June combo, even going back into early spring. July has not been as waterlogged, and not counting what happened this morning, the rainfall percentage of average for July through today's date, we've been running up some deficits in, kind of our northern and central areas, not so much in our southern areas, but kind of this zone right through here that's been pretty dry so far in July. They weren't so dry this morning. We had some slow-moving tropical downpours that moved through. We have some radar estimates here. Here's Route 224, Canfield, Boardman over to Poland, and then between there and kind of the Columbiana line, the Columbiana-Mahoning line, it was pretty common to get 2.5 inches worth of rain. These are radar estimates, but we've seen some ground truth to these numbers. We've seen some videos of, some high water on area roadways. I know Western Reserve Road around the Boardman area was particularly bad for a time around midday today, parts of the Poland area, and we had some flooding over in Lawrence County as well, from Newcastle down towards the Shenango area. All that's long gone, though, and we've been largely dry for several hours now. Couple of specks popping up on the radar this evening. We have a subtle little boundary pushing through, and I mean subtle. This is going to drop the dew points a little bit tonight into tomorrow, but I want to emphasize a little bit. And any stray sprinkles or showers that'll be out there this evening will dissipate pretty quickly as the sun sets. On today's date in weather history, July 14th, 1954, record high of 100. We've only got a handful of 100-degree temperatures in our official records for our area. I think the number is 6 days with triple-digit highs. One of them occurred on today's date back in 1954. We haven't been officially at 100 at the Youngstown Warren Regional Airport since that very hot and dry summer of 1988, and we're certainly not going to flirt with the triple digits anytime real soon across our area. I mentioned that little dew point boundary that's sliding in. It's going to be hardly noticeable. The dew points will be just a degree or two lower for a time overnight and at times on Tuesday, but that's not going to be a noticeable thing. It's going to be a steamy day no matter which way you slice it on Tuesday, as temperatures will get up into the upper 80s to around 90. I'll have to watch for fog tonight into tomorrow morning, especially if you did see a decent amount of rain earlier on today. You have a pretty good chance of seeing some fog for a time tomorrow morning, but otherwise we will be rain-free Tuesday. Good deal of sunshine, sending those temperatures into the upper 80s, lower 90s on some local thermometers. The break from the rain doesn't last very long, though. I think Wednesday will probably start out dry, but as we head towards mid-morning, especially in the afternoon, some showers will bubble up in an increasingly unstable air mass. Now, we don't have much wind shear aloft, so the severe weather risk will probably be fairly minimal on Wednesday, but there could certainly be some good summertime soakers and perhaps some localized flash flooding on Wednesday. No triggers, though. No fronts pushing through on Wednesday. That'll change as we go into the day on Thursday. The actual frontal passage will probably be on Friday, but it'll start to approach on Thursday, and we'll finally get some upper-level dynamics, some wind shear going on aloft, enough that as things bubble up in the afternoon on Thursday, I am concerned about some hail-producing storms and perhaps some wind-producing storms as well. Again, especially in the afternoon on Thursday. This front's a little bit stronger than the subtle little boundary that's pushing through tonight, and a more noticeable change in the air mass will occur by Friday afternoon into Friday night and Saturday. So the flash flood risk, of course, nil here locally Tuesday, but the Weather Prediction Center does have a large area of low flash flood risk on Wednesday for day 3. They do have a medium risk in central and eastern PA. I wouldn't be surprised if when this becomes the day 2 outlook tonight into tomorrow morning, they expand that medium risk maybe a little bit farther to the west. These are going to be slow-moving storms and showers that don't have much wind aloft to steer them along. And with the air mass turning as juicy as it will be on Wednesday, that's a recipe for some Florida-like downpours. Again, the air mass dries out just a little bit over the next 24 hours, but all this kind of juicy, really tropical air down here, it's going to quickly rebound northward as we go into the day. Wednesday, it's going to feel like a Miami day Wednesday. Same idea Thursday. And then here's our next front, with a push of drier air just in time for Friday afternoon. I think Friday evening will be a delightful summer evening. Saturday should be just fine as well, with seasonable warmth and a dew point drop that probably is not going to last that long. I think it'll turn muggy again as we go into Sunday and early next week. We might have to watch for a couple of thunderstorm clusters this weekend, especially Saturday night and maybe parts of Sunday. Overall, though, the upper level pattern is fairly unremarkable for the middle of summer over the next week or 10 days or so. I'm expecting heat to start to build in a big way across the middle of the country, maybe just beyond this period, maybe towards the last week of July. And while we will not be under that heat dome per se, I don't see any sort of extreme heat around here in the coming couple of weeks. It's going to be pretty consistently warm. I just don't see much break from this summertime warmth. Sometimes in July we get a cold front or two that knocks our temperatures back into the 70s for daytime highs, and I think we're going to have a hard time seeing that kind of a respite anytime real soon. So here's a look at the next 10 days. Our averages, of course, are at their peak at this time of the year. This is climatologically speaking the hottest time of the year. So a high of 81 coming up on, Friday? That's actually a degree below the average. But as you can see, the rule over the next 10 days will be above the average by some degree. The warmest day is probably going to be tomorrow, actually, with moderate humidity, dew points mid-60s, air temperatures upper 80s. That'll create a heat index in the lower 90s. The heat index won't be too different than the air temperature tomorrow because the dew points, they're not going to be around 72 or anything like that, but a 66 degree dew point is still going to knock the heat index up a couple of degrees from the actual temperature. So again, Tuesday evening on Weather for Weather Geeks, we'll do a more comprehensive halftime report of meteorological summer. We'll look ahead towards those thunderstorm threats Wednesday and Thursday, and much, much more. Hope to see you then. See you later.